Imagine 6,000 tanks, 4,000 aircraft, and over 2 million soldiers colliding in one battle. The ground shook, the skies roared, and history was changed forever. Welcome to Kursk, the largest tank battle in history. This is the story of one of the most pivotal clashes of World War II, a battle where steel giants dueled on the open plains and the fate of the Eastern Front hung in the balance. Let's roll back to 1941. Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, aiming to crush the Soviet Union in a lightning campaign. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. Instead of a quick victory, the Nazis found themselves locked in a brutal, grinding war of attrition on the Eastern Front. By 1943, the Germans were licking their wounds after defeats at Stalingrad and Leningrad. The Soviet Red Army, meanwhile, was gaining confidence. But Hitler wasn't ready to throw in the towel just yet. He believed a decisive victory could turn the tide, and he had his eyes on a bulge in the Soviet line near the city of Kursk. This bulge, or salient, stretched 160 miles wide and 100 miles deep. The plan? Crush the bulge from the north and south, encircle the Soviet forces, and destroy them. The operation was codenamed Citadel, but it would become a citadel of disaster for the Germans. Now, when I say largest tank battle, I mean largest. The Germans assembled a formidable force. Over 900,000 troops, 2,700 tanks, including the fearsome Tiger Zus and Panther tanks, nearly 2,000 aircraft. But the Soviets weren't just sitting around waiting to be attacked. Oh no, they knew the Germans were coming. And thanks to a combination of intelligence, captured plans, and a healthy dose of paranoia, the Soviets prepared defensive positions that were terrifyingly effective. They dug 5,000 miles of trenches, laid 1 million mines, and built deep defensive layers, essentially creating a tank trap on an epic scale. The Red Army also brought their own toys to the fight. Over 1.3 million soldiers, 3,600 tanks, including the reliable T-34, 2,500 aircraft. The stage was set for a clash that would dwarf anything seen before or since. The German attack began on July 5, 1943, with a thunderous artillery barrage. Their tanks surged forward in a coordinated assault, but they quickly hit the Soviet defenses, and those defenses hit back hard. In the north, German forces under General Model struggled against deep Soviet fortifications. Progress was slow, losses were heavy, and morale was slipping. In the south, General Hoth's forces made better progress, pushing deep into Soviet lines. But the deeper they went, the more resistance they faced. And then came Prokhorovka, the epicenter of the tank battle. On July 12th, the Germans and Soviets clashed in a massive armored engagement. Imagine hundreds of tanks charging each other, cannons blazing, in a chaotic, dust-filled melee. The T-34 swarmed like angry bees, taking on the heavier German Tigers and Panthers with sheer numbers and ferocity. By the end of the day, the battlefield was littered with burning hulks of tanks from both sides. Here's where it all went wrong for the Germans. Soviet preparedness. The Red Army knew exactly what was coming and had fortified their defenses to absurd levels. Overstretched resources. The Germans simply couldn't sustain the kind of losses they suffered at Kursk. Their tanks were powerful, but fewer in number and harder to replace. Soviet counterattacks. After stalling the German offensive, the Soviets launched a massive counteroffensive, pushing the Germans back and retaking lost ground. Hitler's impatience. Hitler prematurely called off the offensive to shift resources to Italy after the Allies invaded Sicily. This essentially handed the Soviets the victory. The Battle of Kursk marked the end of German offensives on the Eastern Front. From here on, the Nazis were on the defensive, pushed back by a relentless Red Army all the way to Berlin. Soviet casualties were staggering: over 800,000 men, 6,000 tanks, and 2,000 aircraft. But the Germans couldn't afford their losses. Kursk drained their resources and shattered their aura of invincibility. Kursk was more than just a tank battle, it was a turning point in World War II. It demonstrated the Soviet Union's ability to outthink, outlast, and outgun the Germans. It also showed that the tide of war had decisively turned. Today, Kursk remains a symbol of industrialized warfare at its most intense and brutal, a battle that defined the fate of nations and the future of the world. So, there you have it, the Battle of Kursk, where tanks clashed, mines exploded, and Hitler learned that biting off more than you can chew isn't a great strategy. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's largest battles, make sure to smash that subscribe button, and hey, leave a comment if you think tiger tanks were more intimidating than your Monday morning alarm. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more explosive history.